A happy Monday to everybody. Hope everybody out there had an awesome weekend. We have a great show coming your way on today's Philadelphia Eagles Now, and there are two stories that we want to hit. An interesting report from NFL insider Dianna Russini of The Athletic on the rapport and the dynamic and the relationship between Jalen Hurts and Nick Sirianni. And also, she did a podcast with Saquon Barkley, and he explained why he decided to leave the New York Giants. We've seen the side of the Giants throughout Hard Knocks. Now Saquon explains his decision. First, we are 1 day away from the Eagles reporting to the NovaCare Complex for the start of training camp, meaning the regular season is going to be here before we know it. So if you're pumped up, I want everybody watching right now to hit that thumbs up icon, like the video, go Birds, and with that, let's start the show. And I'm Chase Sr., your host of today's Philadelphia Eagles Now by Chat Sports, and today's program is sponsored by our friends at Rhone. The other day I went golfing, shot an 81. I was hitting some bombs off the tee. I wouldn't have been able to do that if it wasn't for me wearing my Rhone commuter polo. Get 20% off, Rhone.com/chatsports. Use the code chatsports for that deal to apply. That link and information is hanging out down in the comment section and in the show notes of today's show. A work in progress. That is how NFL insider Dianna Russini explained the relationship between Jalen Hurts and Nick Sirianni. And many of us knew last year that something was amiss. Something was not right between the Eagles starting quarterback, who signed that massive contract extension after helping to lead the Eagles to the Super Bowl, and the head coach, who in year 2 lifted the Eagles to the number 1 seed in the NFC. Home field advantage, went through Lincoln Financial Field, and that 2022 campaign was magical. It all really came crumbling down last year, though, because 2023 was a mess, especially at the end as the Eagles collapsed after that 10-1 start. And there was a little bit of a rift that we saw on the sideline, but also with what Sirianni and Hurts said respectively in their own press conferences, with the communication, how they interacted with one another, and that reflected in the offense's porous play. Part of the reason why they didn't get along and why this relationship, according to Russini, is a work in progress. Jalen Hurts, Nick Sirianni, vastly different human beings with much different personalities. Jalen Hurts is stoic and reserved. Nick Sirianni, energetic, emotional, and outspoken. When Jalen Hurts throws a big touchdown, he'll look to the sideline, he'll cross his arms and nod. When the Eagles win a game on the road, Sirianni will stand up on the bench and he'll talk shit toward the opposing fans. And I imagine this also played a role where Hurts has known former Eagles offensive coordinator Brian Johnson, who was the OC last year, since he was a kid. Hurts' dad coached Brian Johnson in high school. And that was part of the reason why Johnson got elevated to become the play caller for Philadelphia in replacing Shane Steichen, who took the head coaching job with the Indianapolis Colts. And according to Dianna Russini, it was Johnson who was running Nick Sirianni's scheme. And Sirianni had all of the say, from play calls to play design and the overall system. And as we saw, that scheme last year was lethargic. It was a vanilla offense that was lame and predictable. And I imagine that Hurts thought that Brian Johnson was a little bit of a scapegoat, which impacted their relationship. Here's what Dianna Russini had to say about all of this, and we'll go through the snippets, and then I'll react to what she had to report and say. First, this one. We've seen Jalen Hurts on the sideline with Nick Sirianni, and they were not going at one another, but there is definitely a difference in personality. The way I would describe it, the relationship is still a work in progress. Last year, there was some disconnect between them due to their personalities. Nick, we've seen, very emotional guy. Jalen, a very private guy. They are different human beings, which is fine. You don't all have to be the same, but you do have to be on the same page when it comes to what you want to do on offense. Sirianni probably wanted to do certain things on offense. They weren't working. Jalen Hurts knew that. And Jalen Hurts wanted to make changes. Sirianni wasn't willing to make those changes. And then Brian Johnson was made out to be the fall guy. And we've talked about this here on the show. The fact that the Eagles were 32nd in pre-snap motion, a joke. The fact that there were no checkdowns or hot routes, or Jalen Hurts wasn't able to make audibles at the line of scrimmage from time to time, and there weren't certain changes that were made during the season and adjustments made. I imagine that frustrated Hurts because he was getting all this heat from Philadelphia when he wasn't playing well, when in reality, Sirianni's scheme had a lot to do with that. From Dianna Russini on the Eagles' 10-1 start and what happened thereafter. What I was told, those 10 wins were a grind. The Eagles were winning, but things weren't exactly perfect behind the scenes. And from a culture standpoint, one issue, Sirianni, a conservative play caller. That never goes over great with the franchise quarterback. Brian Johnson was last year's offensive coordinator. He's since been fired, is now with the Commanders. Johnson had a great relationship with Hurts, which is part of the reason why he was promoted before the 2023 season when Steichen left to Indy. But according to a few people in Philadelphia, while Johnson was the OC, it was 100% Sirianni's offense that you were watching last year. And Sirianni wanted to do it his way. That meant a conservative, run-first approach, especially when they got near the red zone. And last year, opposing defenses were ready for it. Johnson wasn't calling his own plays. He was solely focused on giving Sirianni the offense that Sirianni wanted to run. That resulted in a lot of problems for Philadelphia. And this is why you watch this show. Because going back to last year, throughout this offseason, we have been talking about this for months. And I know that Johnson was tasked with running Sirianni's offense. But he's a different guy. He has a different offensive philosophy. They probably think about the game in different ways. So I do believe as a head coach, you have to be willing to be malleable. You have to be willing to give a leash to your coordinators and allow them to at least do their thing a little bit. It seems as though Sirianni didn't let that happen. Sirianni was also a part of this Eagles collapse, of course, and here's what Russini had to say about Sirianni surviving the collapse. Sirianni has taken this team to a Super Bowl. He had so much success with this team. The thinking inside the building was, how could you move on from him? And I had people who worked there texting me last January asking me just that. But from what people there told me, Sirianni was never really in danger because of what he accomplished the previous season. The Eagles, of course, fired Doug Peterson, even though Peterson had won a Super Bowl, but the front office knew and ownership knew it just wouldn't have been a good look to move on from Sirianni that soon after his success the previous year. There was a shift, though. Howie Roseman has all of the power now. Roseman having power is nothing new in Philadelphia, but in terms of moving forward in 2024, Roseman had his hands all over every decision. That included the new coordinator hires, Kellen Moore on offense and Vic Fangio on defense. So that is also very interesting as part of this conversation. It is looked at and it is thought of as very unusual for a general manager to hire coordinators. And I have to give a shout out to John Kincaid of 97.5 The Fanatic because he was all over this earlier this offseason when the Eagles tabbed Kellen Moore as the OC to take over for Brian Johnson and Vic Fangio as the DC to take over for Sean Desai. And it wasn't really a well-known thing at that point that Sirianni didn't make those coordinator decisions. And John Kincaid had said it was Howie Roseman and Jeffrey Lurie who streamlined Moore and Fangio to become the new coordinators. It was not the decision of Nick Sirianni in making those choices. Interesting stuff right there. And now you're looking at an Eagles team where Howie Roseman has all of the say. So if this year doesn't go well, outside of coaching, Howie Roseman could be the man to blame. Russini on Sirianni's job status going into this year. In the end, I believe they kept Sirianni for 2024 because they felt that Nick could still do this, and he can. But Roseman believes this is a championship roster. What that means, if Sirianni doesn't take them to that level in 2024, the leash probably is not very long. Yeah, the translation is this, that if the Eagles stink up the joint and they look like a disjointed football team, and there is ongoing drama on the sideline and in the locker room, the schemes stink, Sirianni struggles with game management, he struggles with coaching, and the players don't buy in, Sirianni's going to be out. Jeffrey Lurie really trusts Howie Roseman, which is why he tasked Roseman with making the coordinator decisions. So it's going to be Sirianni who gets kicked to the curb, not Roseman, if the Eagles do not fulfill expectations this year. I think they will, but if they don't, my goodness, a lot of juicy storylines will ensue. If you love the Philadelphia Eagles with every being of your soul, I want you to subscribe to us here on Eagles Now. As you can see, we are approaching 77,000 subscribers. Couple of things I don't want to check off. How many subscribers can we pick up before the regular season? During the season, I want to be able to get to 100,000 subscribers and get that silver plaque from YouTube. But you're a winner at the end of the day, because then you get Eagles shows every single day that are informative, insightful, entertaining, thought-provoking, and involve you, the Eagles fan. Coming up next, story number 2. Saquon Barkley tells all and explains to Dianna Russini why he left the New York Giants to sign with the Philadelphia Eagles. First, let's give a shout out to today's sponsor, Rhone, for making everything possible. You can get 20% off your order by using the code CHATSPORTS at Rhone.com/ChatSports. Couple of reasons why I love Rhone and their products. All of their materials, flexible, durable, stretchable. Look at this shirt. It's so comfortable, right? But it's also flexible, and you can wear this shirt from the golf course like I was on Friday, hitting bombs, throwing darts on the green, to your corner office comfort. You can wear these shirts going out on a date, taking some drinks down with the homies if you're going to hit the town. And Rhone, they have gear for really every occasion, as I mentioned. But I like the versatility as well, because you can wear a golf polo like this. You can wear a button down like that. Their shorts and pants are also very comfortable. I'm willing to invest in high quality clothing that I know is going to allow me to look good, feel good, but the products are also going to last a very long time. It sucks when you invest in something that's expensive and then those clothes fall apart after a couple of wears. It's not going to happen with Rhone. So we're going to put all of this information for you down below in the show notes and attached to the pinned comment of today's Philadelphia Eagles. Now, the Bird Gang, get 20% off your order using the code CHATSPORTS at Rhone.com/ChatSports. Now we segue and transition to segment number 2. Throughout this offseason, we have heard from the New York Giants during their Hard Knocks season for what they thought about Saquon Barkley leaving the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, let's hear from the man himself. Why did Saquon Barkley leave the New York Giants to sign with the Philadelphia Eagles in NFL free agency in a move that sent ripple effects through the Giants fan base and organization and caused Eagles fans everywhere to celebrate? Now, let's recap what we talked about last week. And we recapped what transpired during the Hard Knocks season when the New York Giants were featured, and everything that they did, draft, free agency, documented in the public eye on Hard Knocks, which I thought was really well done. And obviously, it was the first offseason Hard Knocks. We have seen plenty of Hard Knock seasons documenting a respective team's preseason and training camp. So HBO doing the offseason Hard Knocks for the first time, New York Giants featured, and there were a lot of dialogues between general manager Joe Schoen and owner John Mara. They had phone conversations with Saquon. They had conversations between the two of them as the leaders of the organization for what they wanted to do with Saquon as he was set to enter NFL free agency. And a couple of takeaways that I had from that season. There was that phone call between Joe Schoen and Saquon where Joe Schoen told Saquon Barkley, we're not going to put the franchise tag on you. We're going to let you hit free agency. We're going to let you see what you can get and test your market. I actually thought that was a fair move by the New York Giants. They didn't want to do the whole franchise tag ordeal. They wanted to allow Saquon, the face of their franchise, to field offers and see if he could get a long-term offer, which would obviously lead to long-term financial stability. And that's exactly what happened with Saquon. He got that great deal from Howie Roseman and the Philadelphia Eagles. There was also a conversation between Giants general manager Joe Schoen and owner John Mara where Schoen questioned if another team was going to give Barkley big money. He said, are we sure that a team is going to pay up that much money for Saquon at the running back position? Philadelphia was certainly willing to do that. The Giants not willing to go north of the Eagles' offer. The Giants didn't want to go past $12.5 million per year. And Shane after hearing all of these reports of a couple of teams in the mix, asked Saquon's agent specifically if the team that he was going to was going to be inside the NFC East because Joe Schoen wanted to prepare himself mentally. Now they find out that Saquon signs with Philadelphia. John Mara not happy. Joe Schoen did say, we're going to be just fine. I don't think you're going to be just fine because that Giants team, I think they're going to stink up the joint this upcoming season in 2024. Here's also what John Mara, the Giants owner, said about Saquon and the prospects of him going to the Eagles, and Eagles fans will love this. I'll have a tough time sleeping if Saquon goes to Philadelphia. I'll tell you that. He's the most popular player we have by far. That's the Giants side, as a little bit of a recap from what we've discussed here on Eagles Now. What is Saquon's side? Here's his tell-all. Quote, it was over after that phone call, in my opinion, and he's referencing the phone call when Joe Schoen was allowing Saquon to hit free agency. He continued, I never truly felt in my heart they were going to match it or they only wanted me for a lower price. No matter what, I probably wasn't going back. And it's interesting that Saquon said that to Dianna Russini on her podcast with Eagles legend Chase Daniel. I say legend in a sarcastic tone because you could tell with that phone call airing that Saquon wasn't ecstatic. He's like, all right, yep, I'll come back and let you know because Joe Schoen was like, are you going to give us a chance to match? Are you going to give us a chance to give you an offer? And Saquon's like, yeah, I'll let you know. It just seemed as though at that moment, that was the breakup. And when there's a breakup in a relationship, oftentimes you do know. But for Giants fans who are complaining about Saquon signing with the division rival Eagles, and they're mad at him, they should be mad at the organization. The New York Giants could have avoided all of this. New York had an opportunity and multiple opportunities to offer Saquon Barkley a contract extension. The Giants instead placed the franchise tag on Saquon after a terrific 2022 season in which he put the team on his back, and that opened up the door for him to leave this offseason, which he ended up doing. And that was a little bit disrespectful. If John Mara thinks that Saquon is the team's most popular player, and he's the face of the organization, which sadly he is as a running back because they don't have a quarterback, then the owner could have stepped in and said, we need this guy paid. We're not signing him to the franchise tag. So the Giants have had all these opportunities to sign Saquon. They had another opportunity this offseason. They could have given Saquon Barkley a contract back several months ago to not let him go to the Philadelphia Eagles and not let him hit the market. I give him credit for not putting the franchise tag on Saquon. That was nice of them to do. But they also could have just given him a contract extension, and Saquon would have probably stayed. With New York, you were always worth what somebody is willing to pay you. The Giants weren't willing to give Saquon Barkley that financial commitment. Howie Roseman was. Jeffrey Lurie signed off in signing that check. So while the Giants showed they didn't want Saquon, the Eagles welcomed him with open arms, and they paid him big-time dollars. Now, Christian McCaffrey has since reset the running back market, as he should have, because last year he led the NFL in touches, more than 2,000 all-purpose yards, top 5 MVP voting, NFL Offensive Player of the Year. But the deal that Saquon got is pretty damn good. A 3-year, $37.75 million contract. That's an average annual value of $12.58 million. Surprisingly, this offseason, there were a couple of running backs who got paid some decent coin. Saquon, and a lot of this contract had to do with the Saquon guaranteed money, and that was really good for him. Guaranteed money at signing and total guaranteed money, $26 million. So essentially, it's pretty much a 2-year deal worth $26 million, $13 million per year that the Eagles are giving Saquon. But the magician-like stroke of Howie Roseman on the salary cap is Saquon's 2024 cap hit and base salary. $3.8 million is the cap hit. $1.375 million is the base salary. So if Saquon ends up performing really, really well, and he has the Christian McCaffrey impact on the Eagles offense that McCaffrey had on the Niners offense since the trade, and especially last year, this could end up being a great bargain deal for the Eagles, and it's going to make the Giants look bad with egg on their faces. Before we hop on out of here, Eagles training camp almost here. If you're pumped, you're excited, hit that thumbs up icon, like the video. Go Birds! And make sure you keep it locked here for the best Eagles training camp coverage.